Come on, hold on. Ruby, come on. Good girl. Hey, good afternoon. I guess it's good evening where I am now. It's so light out, but it's after 6 p.m. Hey, what's up, everybody? Just out with the dog for a little walk. Oh, man. Thank goodness for nature. Without nature, I'd probably go totally bonkers. I'm just going to invite some people real quick. Let me see if I can pull everybody up here. Wow, a lot of people here. Welcome. I'm just doing some invites. If you could do the same, that'd be cool. I have an important topic to talk about today, which I think people will find interesting, but it's actually something that I want to talk about, but it actually frustrates the crap out of me. But alas, it is reality. Okay, I'm just still doing some invites. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm out with the dog again for a little walk. In just a second, I'll be done doing this crazy stuff. Okay, done deal. Welcome, welcome, welcome. To save power on the phone here, I have my brightness turned down, but makes it a little hard to see the comments, but I'll do my best. I like to come out here really early in the morning sometimes when there's just nobody here. It's kind of nice when you're in nature and you're just totally by yourself. Yeah, we'll talk about that's a good question. Somebody brought up a good point about native. We'll talk some about that. Hey, what's up? How's it going? So we're going to talk about some interesting things about politics in general today that I think are, I talk about something called pragmatism, which is really important to political movements. Hold on, dog, you're behind a tree here. Come on, come on. Jimmy, I don't know, does anybody know who Jimmy Dore is? The Jimmy Dore Show? Anybody ever heard of Jimmy? Ruby, hey, just a sec. Sorry about this. Okay, hopefully she doesn't howl too much. She's a hound dog, and she gets a scent of a deer. It's that all day. Sorry, come on, Ruby. Just please chill out. We have to try to do this without your noise in the background. Okay, so I don't know if anybody knows this, but back in the 1960s, there was a group called the Black Panthers. They were sort of a militant, I don't know if this is the right term, but I'll just use it, black liberation type of group. In the late 1960s, it was a very tumultuous time in the United States. There were a lot of conversations about revolution. The Vietnam War was raging. A lot of younger people were angry and getting out in the streets. My father told me, because he was in the army, he was very conservative, very pro-establishment, that it was the worst time in his life in terms of just the political climate. And in fact, when Martin Luther King Jr. was killed in 1968, my parents lived in Washington, D.C., in one of those high-rise buildings. And the National Guard had to guard the entrances so people wouldn't come up and, I guess, attack people or some shit. I don't know. It was a very tumultuous time. I'm going to turn my What am I talking about as far as political pragmatism, and how does that have any impact on what happened in 1968, 1969? Well, a lot of groups had a lot of differences on a personal basis. Some groups were, you others were Black Panthers. And Fred Hampton, who was one of the most amazing organizers that's ever lived, and one of the greatest heroes in the movement for liberation, I think, got with some of these groups, brought them together, these issues, but we do have this particular thing in common. And so they worked together, even though they had drastic differences in their basic ideologies. And I raised this point just to make a bigger concept, to focus on it insofar as when it comes to political movements and the movement, for example, to try to work on helping people be aware, to raise awareness about this issue about Israel-Palestine. Every movement is going to have a wide variety of people if it's going to be successful. You have to have a bigger tent to let people in because, if you make exclusionary rules about every single person, maybe you despise them on certain things, you're not going to work with them. You're not going to have anybody in your movement. And that's politics. It's all about building what they call coalitions. And that's done by being pragmatic. So, I'll give you an example of something from this conflict this is my version of trying to do it. But you have your version. Some things you're going to put as a red line that you can't let somebody cross, or sometimes you'll be able to manage these things. So I brought up Andrew Tate. So if you don't know, Andrew Tate went on Piers Morgan. I should probably tell people who Andrew Tate is first. Andrew Tate, if you don't know, you probably do, but if you haven't known, he's one of the most well-known people on the planet. He and his brother Tristan are very outspoken, sort of brash, arrogant, misogynistic, according to many. They use terms to refer to women like, bitch and stuff like that, which I don't agree with. And they had a business where they made a lot of money. And what they would do, Andrew kind of developed this scheme. He would get girls to love him, or kind of, they'd have relations. And then he would convince the girls with whom he had these relations to work for him in his business, which was webcam, like OnlyFans kind of stuff. And then they would get on the keyboard. They would have the camera, and they would show the girl like she was fake typing, but he would be the person behind the keyboard talking to these men. And he just bilked them for, all their money. So that's how he got rich. And he did this to maybe, 40, 50, 60 girls, I don't know. And believe it or not, he used emotional coercion. He would give people, the girl would stay at home. Hey, Ruby, relax. This might be problematic. She's really pulling me. Hey, Ruby, come here. Relax, girl. Come on. So it was called the lover boy method. And what he did was he would get these girls, like I said, to fall in love with him or Tristan. And then they would kind of pimp them out in a way that, like digitally pimp them out, to get guys to pay money for them in these different sites like Chatterbait or whatever the hell it was. There's a deer right there. Holy shit, we got to go this way. Ruby, come on. Hey, relax. Come on. That's not good. Come on, Ruby, relax. So obviously I disagree with Andrew Tate wholeheartedly on that. It's a disgusting way to make your money. And he got filthy rich. He made like $10 or $15 million doing this stuff. He claims he made a lot more because he's braggadocious and exaggerates everything. Anyway, so I'm not a big fan of Andrew Tate, but I will say this. In an interview with Piers Morgan at his home in Romania, he spoke out very effectively about the Palestinian cause, for the people of Gaza. And so that's an example of someone being in a movement and speaking out articulately. He has a huge platform, tons of people tuned in. And listen, he's a bad guy. He's not a good guy, right? But on this particular subject, he spoke to a large audience and hopefully influenced people's views of this, opened their eyes up and told the truth. And so in that regard, I embrace Andrew Tate in an inclusive fashion rather than an exclusionary fashion. That's an example. Okay, I don't have to have dinner with the guy. I don't have to watch his content. I don't have to talk nicely about him, but I appreciate what he did in that regard. Here on TikTok, I've met and come across people with whom I'm not particularly fond of them, even within the Palestinian movement. I don't hate them, but I just find their style, it's kind of abrasive, and it just differs from mine to an extent that it's like, the nails on a chalkboard kind of thing. But ultimately, regardless, it doesn't matter how I feel. It matters that they're out there doing the work to try to help change thoughts and minds in their way. Another example is, and this is one that it's a little tougher to stretch for me, but it's presidents. The presidents, I don't like any of the American presidents. I think they're all war criminals and disgusting politicians that do despicable things that harm so many more people than we'll ever know about. But I think there's degrees of awful, right? And so one of the big issues to me, of course, I was in the military, I served in combat, is peace. I don't want to see anybody fighting each other if it can be avoided in any way. So in this regard, hey, listen, I think Donald Trump is gross on a lot of levels, a lot like Andrew Tate is. He's got a unique personality. He's sort of got like a con man type of way about him. A lot of people love him. They think he's the savior. A lot of people can't stand him. My mother can't even hear the word mentioned. She just absolutely just starts to, her face gets this weird shape. It's like she just hates the guy. And some people call that Trump derangement syndrome. But whether you love him or hate him, this is a reality that I think we can't not acknowledge. So during his administration, there were some, targeted this, that, or the other, and we did maintain some occupations like in Syria, but no new major escalations occurred. And the guy visited foreign leaders, and which is better in terms of opening up dialogue, in my opinion. The U.S. normally will set conditions with which leaders have to meet in order for us to go grant them with our presence. Like they have to end their nuclear testing, for example, in North Korea. Oh, we're not going to go talk to them. He did it anyway. He went over and talked to the guy. I think conversation is better than no conversation. It's better than nothing, right? So in that regard, I am for what happened under that Trump presidency. I don't have to like the man, but I like that aspect of what happened. I think it's better for the United States long term, for the safety of the public. And I would argue right now for anybody who's a Biden supporter, even if you can look past the G side part of this, which most people probably can't that are here, but even if you somehow can because you hate Trump, you have to admit that two major conflicts have broken out during the Biden. It's not necessarily Joe Biden's fault, but just is what it is. Now, you can argue that the Americans have done things in Ukraine vis-a-vis supporting the weaponry, and that's fueled the conflict. They've tried to use Ukraine as a proxy to degrade Russia, our supposed adversary. And then, of course, what's happened here and supporting Israel. So I don't like any of that. I think that's the worst because here's how this is the logic that I try to use. And yours may be drastically different. I respect yours, whatever it may be. But my logic is this. If the U.S. keeps, in my mind, recklessly pursuing its interest and supporting its proxies in such a way that it agitates other parties to get involved, it creates a regional conflict that then, because of other people's supporters, like Iran has Russia and China behind them, they're nuclear armed. And the last thing I think will help any of us, I don't know about you, but I think if you have missiles raining down on you with 10 megaton warheads, it's not going to be a great day for us. So to me, that's the most important thing, that we avoid that. That's the number one threat to everyone on the planet right now, everything that lives. So even if I despise 99 out of 100 things somebody does, if the one thing they do is to keep us out of a nuclear conflict, I'm for that. So that's an idea of compromise and pragmatism. So why the hell am I even talking about this? Well, the reason is there's a huge hubbub right now. I don't think anybody ever wants to be the center of controversy, but I unfortunately find myself in the crosshairs of a lot of people, which is understandable. And this doesn't minimize their right to feel and do what they choose. I respect everybody's feelings, everybody's positions. You know how I am. I try to be fair to everybody. We all have different ways of looking at the world. And at the same time, I would hope that each person could at least consider viewing the bigger picture as a starting point and then work your way back to what affects you. Now, here's what I like to say. I've heard people from the Israeli side say that when people go out around the world, that anti-Semitism has increased dramatically and they feel uncomfortable, right? They feel uncomfortable. That sucks. I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable or feel like they're being sold out because of what a government's doing and they just happen to share the ethnicity with the majority of people who live in that country. That's not fair to them. But it's a feeling. It's nothing physically harming somebody. Versus what we see in Gaza, which are literally 2,000-pound bombs being dropped on densely populated areas, snipers taking out children, the whole story. That's a lot bigger than feelings. And the feelings that accompany the loss associated with losing family members like that is unspeakably horrible. I can't even imagine. I've never had that happen to me, but I can't even imagine. Same thing on the Israeli side on 10/7. That's got to be fair. So I'm sorry that people have feelings or sensibilities or principles that they feel have been crossed, because I'm not a hateful person. I don't do things intentionally to be mean to anybody. I let people come up here and tell me I'm a piece of junk, right? It's acceptable, but it's not something I particularly enjoy when somebody, says something horrible about you. It sucks. But, I did a lot of thinking about all this, of course, and I'm not even looking at the comments. So if somebody's saying crazy shit, it is what it is. But what I'm trying to do is, the first thing when all this bullshit went down, the first thing I did, for those of you who don't know, is I reached out to other people who I have respect for, who are advocates for the Palestinian side. I said, listen, this is something that's not good. And I think the last thing you want to have, if you're committed to a movement and you want to help it, And the goal is all that matters. The end result of all this is there needs to be a peaceful resolution where Palestinians have some form of self-determination, dignity, and respect to have the lives that they want to build, free from all the brutality and occupation and all the bullshit, right? That's the goal, as they have defined it. So that's the thing that stays in my mind anytime I'm doing anything, thinking about it. And of course, the feelings that I have are anger and outrage of what the Israelis choose to do to brutalize Palestinians. I understand that sometimes it's in response to things that they do. I know that violence begets violence, but I think that it's unfair what has happened historically and what continues to happen to Palestinians. That's just my take. And that motivates me, that anger and frustration, especially watching this chapter, is what motivates everything that I do and say. And my focus is on the big picture. So, as I said earlier, I'm not going to name the names because I don't want to attack anybody or out anybody because it doesn't help the movement. But like I said, there's some people that come onto these rooms. I'll give you an example of something that happened that made me feel frustrated towards a person. And again, this is just one small part of who they are. This is how they chose to behave on a live. So I don't know anything else about their life. And so I can't condemn them as a person because of one thing that I felt uncomfortable or angry about. But anyway, so I was hosting a live recently, and this person came on. I didn't know this at the time because they had a photograph in their avatar of what appeared to be a white woman. But my understanding now is this person is a person of color from the UK. And so here's what was being discussed. There was a pro-Israeli on the panel, and she was addressing this person. And she brought up, I don't know if you know what happened, and about 3 months ago, maybe 2 months, I don't know what it was, there was an attack that took place. There was a pro-Palestinian protest march at Columbia University. And there were some counter-protesters that were either Israeli, dual citizenship, or pro-Israel. I don't know the exact nature, I think. But two of the people in the counter-protest, for whatever reason, I don't know if they felt, if there was physical altercations, I didn't get the details, but they ended up using like a chemical spray that what's called skunk water, skunk spray. And it hit a number of the protesters that were pro-Palestinian. So that's what happened. These people, I think, had to be IDF officers, and they were at school at the same time. They've also been serving in the military. I don't know if they were active duty, whatever, but they had a relationship with the IDF, which is a big part of the story. So it was a big deal at the time. It didn't make huge news, but it was a notable event that took place during this whole situation. So they were talking about that. I'm not trying to bore you. This is just to paint the picture of how things play out that create, I don't know, just letting you know how styles can clash and personalities can clash, but even have the same long-term vision. So what this person framed that as, she said it was a terrorist bioweapon attack, the pro-Palestinian person that was from the UK. That was her phrasing of it. And then the person on the pro-Israeli side said, well, I disagree with that framing. Yeah, it was bad that these people did that, and they should be punished for it to whatever degree they caused harm. And I think a few of the people had to go to the doctor or to the hospital. My understanding is that the university itself decided to manage the event, to hold the people who did it accountable. I don't know if they took them to the local police or not, but I didn't hear the outcome. But I'm sure that they'll be dealt with to some degree for what they did. It was a stupid thing to do, to use a spray on people. They have no right to do that. I don't know if they were threatened by somebody. That's what I don't know. So if they were being violently threatened and someone was getting in their face, it's more harmful than simple, like the little pepper spray you use. It's more harmful than that, but it's not life threatening. It's actually used regularly in Israel anytime they want to disperse a crowd. It's one of the agents they use to disperse crowds. It's non-lethal. Again, I could be getting details wrong. I don't know everything. So here's what happened next. So I often, between conversations on the panel, as you all know, I kind of come in and give a little bit of commentary, very small amount, and then I go to the next guest or, get the conversation keep continuing. So I interjected briefly and I said, hey, I'm kind of with Zach on this one. I don't think that it should be categorized as a terrorist attack with bioweapons, although I think that people should be punished. Holy shit. You would think that I just pledged allegiance to Israel. This person came back, interrupted, just wouldn't lay off, and just started to lecture me on how I have no right to not categorize it as such, and that her take was the only take, and that there's no other take to be had under these circumstances. Now listen, I find that way of thinking to be sort of obstinate, stubborn, self-righteous, and self-serving. You can have your take, but just because you have your take doesn't make it the take. Other people may agree with your take, and maybe I'm in the minority of seeing it differently, like this person's act did. But it doesn't make your take more valid or less than mine, or vice versa. And that's the approach I try to take on these lives. And that angers people sometimes. I'll give you one more example. This is going back several months ago when the count was about 10,000. There was someone who came up on the live, and they expressed their opinion vis-a-vis the G side. And what they claimed when they made their point, which is perfectly valid for anybody to make their point. I'm very open to anybody's point of view. It is what it is. Try to be respectful. So what she said was, based on her opinion, that it seems the Israeli government is trying to unalive every single Palestinian in Gaza. Every single person. Like they're going to just not stop until everyone is unalived. And I responded and I said, hey, I understand your point of view. I happen to disagree with that. I do think that they've been using reckless disregard for human life by their targeting systems, quote unquote, by just dropping shit. And I believe that their main goal is to take the land. They want the people out of the land. That's been their goal of all this stuff, in my opinion, for a long time. The way they mistreat people in the West Bank, the way they mistreat people in Gaza, all of that brutality that I refer to is towards that collective goal of pushing people out and for the greater Israel thing to kind of take its course. That's my view. But I said, I don't believe they're going to try to unalive it, nor would it be politically feasible or practical to do so. Think about it. If Israel started doing that, if they started, 80,000, 200,000, 500,000, there's no way the world would sit back and let that happen. That's just too outrageous. It's bad enough the world has sat back and let what has happened, but it's been within the bounds of political pragmatism, or people would have intervened. But that would be a bridge too far, in my opinion. So therefore, I disagree with the point. Oh my God, you think, again, I just align with the Israelis. Oh my God, I can't believe you can't be an advocate for Palestine and say that. You have to say they're trying to, like I said, I don't have to say jack shit. I respect your point of view, and maybe your point of view will turn out to be correct. I don't know. But this sort of self-righteous, my way or the highway type of thinking is, I believe, counterproductive to a broader movement where compromise and the bigger picture are the most important considerations. That's my way of doing things, and I know some people get upset by that. I get accused of platforming Zionists and giving them a chance to say their points. And this same person accused me recently of being pro-Zionist because I shut down the people who are pro-Palestinian. What the fuck? I mean, if this person, by the way, if anybody even remotely agrees with that point of view or that criticism, I sincerely invite them to go to my archive of every live you've ever seen here. So again, just like I said that person who came on, I don't know the rest of their life. I don't know their history. I don't particularly like their style, but that doesn't mean I'm going to completely marginalize them and say they're invalid as a someone to push what needs to be pushed out to the public. I thank them for their advocacy, even if I don't like anything about the way they do it. But for whatever reason, she made the decision to approach that differently and get very personally offended and think that I was coming at her just because I disagreed with her assessment of something. People have to lighten the fuck up a little bit, okay? It's okay to have a disagreement. You don't have to completely go into, what do you call it, outrage mode and think that somebody's completely against your entire cause because on one assessment of one subset of the entirety of the conflict, you disagree. It's reasonable to have especially when it's not personal. Nothing was directed personally. I didn't say to the person, I hate your style, I hate your way you think. I said, I disagree with that argument. I lean more towards the other. That's just being objective. And if somebody wants another person to always side with them, because if you don't, you're not being loyal, listen, that's just not how I operate. So I'll give you another example of this. There's been a guy coming on named Morocco Israel, who a lot of people can't stand. And they're angry that I even give him a chance. And listen, I agree. I think he accused someone of being part of Boko Haram, for Christ's sakes. Again, that's stupid. And I told him not to say that again because there's no proof. But anyway, so he said, again, we get into these conversations about what happened on 10/7. And I apologize. I'm not looking at any comments. I'm just ignoring it today. I'm on a rant. Say what you want, whatever you got to say. I don't give a shit. So this guy comes up and he says, I have absolute proof of all the atrocities that were accused on 10/7, which I've heard so many people before him make this claim. I'm like, listen, I don't want to be insensitive for whatever may have happened. It's fair for somebody to say, you shouldn't make that statement. Fair enough. But everyone claims they have evidence. And I've been working really diligently to try to review information as best I can to try to come to some rational determination based on reasonable evidence, standards that everybody uses to try to corroborate or to debunk things. And and there was, by the way, there was just a representative today in a video that's circulating here on TikTok and he's a British guy, but he's a member of an investigative team from Al Jazeera, and he specifically he referenced exactly what I'm about to go over. And I'm just some guy. I don't deserve it. No one has to send me shit. I'm just a dude. But if anybody wants me to speak to it that way, then I have to at least look at something, right? So that's the process I'm trying to follow, to be sincere. My goal in looking at it is not to disprove the guy. My goal in looking at it is to be objective, look at it, and draw honest conclusions based on what was there and then share it. That's fair, right? So if there is evidence to substantiate that stuff, I would be dishonest to suppress it just because it serves the narrative or the side that I quote unquote support, right? And I don't want to put out information that's going to upset people or unnecessarily reveal things that aren't flattering to the cause, so to speak. But because this has been brought up so many times and it's such a point of emphasis, and the outrage that's been created on the pro-Israel side based on these allegations has been so pervasive and has been so referenced to justify the response, which is massively disproportionate and barbaric, that it's really important to get to the bottom of it. And just like this British journalist said, they did a very deep investigation. They said the H group was definitely guilty of war crimes against civilians, that if the plan was to go get hostages, which is what the stated plan was, things went haywire at the festival and throughout the different kibbutzim and the communities. I saw a lot of videos. I've seen a lot of videos, most of which I had seen already. I'd say about 75 or 80% of the content. I went through 285 videos. It took me over 4 hours to do this. This is yesterday. Now listen, I don't get paid for this shit. And I'm not doing it for anything other than the fact that I give a crap. And that feeling that I got when I learned about this, 35 years ago, has never left me. So I'm not looking for a pat on the back, but all the haters out there that claim I'm just doing this for money or accolades, fuck you. Okay, I put the time in because I give a shit. And if you don't like my style or what's then swipe away. Right? No one's forcing you to watch anybody on TikTok. But I put in that time because I've been so trying to get to the bottom of this shit because I want to get the truth, The truth matters. And what I found was the same thing this British guy said. There wasn't jack shit. Now, the videos of the civilian stuff is disgusting. I saw hand grenades being used. I saw firearms. All the things that you would imagine were horrific in terms of what we've heard. I saw it, and I've seen most of it, and it's not pretty. And that alone is what was shown to these journalists. I believe that most of what I saw in the last 24 hours was what these journalists saw. So what Israel has said publicly is many of the journalists left the viewing sick to their stomachs, implying that they saw all the most egregious evidence of the most egregious claims. The S assaults, the mutilations, the burnings, the little babies, all that bullshit. But there was no evidence in those videos that showed any of that. In fact, I've seen a lot of bad videos in my day. I do a lot of research on political stuff. A lot of stuff is cartel related. They had squeezed in like 5 or 6 cartel videos that I'd seen before. They squeezed in videos from Syria that I've seen before that are like 5, 6 years old. I won't even tell you what was. It's absolutely disgusting. I'm not going to tell you what it was. But the idea is they're trying to make it appear that the H group are absolute barbarians. But there's no direct evidence to back it up. In the British documentary, the British guy from Al Jazeera, or the investigative team, he's not somebody who I think, he may be an employee, but he's not somebody who's like an anchor. He said that, what we've learned is that what didn't happen. There was no forensic evidence. There was no direct evidence that supported the claims. And he said, I can't say it didn't happen because just like I say, you can't deny it, but it didn't appear it was used as a widespread form. And there was no evidence to show it had been done at all. Israelis have said that there was this one situation where a woman who I believe was unfortunately not alive, she was face down. Her legs were sort of like a V shape, like when somebody would lay down, you kind of make your feet about 2 feet apart, and that her undergarments were no longer on her. But that's all I heard. That's the only piece of evidence, and that was just somebody. I didn't see the pictures or anything like that. I just heard somebody speak to that. So that's all I got to give you about that after doing that work. Now I'm still going to get criticized for being an H group supporter and someone who denies X, Y, and Z. But those of you who are saying those things, it's only fair for somebody to ask, where do we go to find the corroboration? If you're still going to hold on to that position. So those are the standards I try to use. Now, as far as the lives go, I'm so tired of hearing this shit. Nobody's style is going to appeal to everybody. Some people are going to look at me and say, you're too slow, you're not critical enough, you give people too much time to speak their points, you're being unfair to the post. Whatever. I really sincerely try to have dialogue in a respectful manner that's civil, that gives the audience some stuff to listen to that's substantive, not personal attacks, not all that bullshit stuff, and not become a Jerry Springer show and not an echo chamber of people bashing another side. It doesn't do anything. Nobody learns jack shit if you get in a room and repeat the same stuff to everybody. Sorry about that. Right? So that's why I do what I do. And there's a method to it. And for those of you who see me spending more time with somebody who's pro-Israel, there's a reason why I do it this way. Let me explain. Okay, I ask people very, very direct questions that are not based on the answer at the moment. I have 7 or 8 things I know I'm going to guide somebody down the path. I've done this. I've been talking on these damn apps forever. And so I'm able to, none of this is ever scripted, by the way. This is just off the cuff. But for example, I will guide somebody into a place where there's just no way out. And I'm not trying to trick them. I take their logic and I put it to a place where it's basically like a checkmate. And then they always shift back to things like, well, the Holocaust, or we have to do what we have to do, or it just goes to some other place where when the point can't be argued, it goes to this sort of victimization stuff. That's an important thing for people to see, in my opinion. And so that's the method behind the madness, if you want to know why that is the way it's done. And, sometimes when you bring people up in this regard, you don't know who they are. They change their names or whatever. They come up and say some nasty shit sometimes. You can't stop that. It's like a radio caller. And they're going to get on once in a while and say some stuff that's, childish, inappropriate, or personal, whatever the hell it may be. But I think the risk of that is worth the dialogue. And obviously those who tune in like that and those who don't or have a problem with me personally do their thing elsewhere. God bless. Go do what you got to do. So what I'm trying to focus on, and this is what I'm going to do moving forward, one example I would give you is I want to talk one more thing before I bring up guests, because this has been a pretty succinct summary of this stuff. So we all know people can cross a line on a social level, right? Yeah, I'm sure everybody's heard of a guy named Bill Maher, the comedian on HBO. He has a show called Real Time. And he was having an interview with somebody. They were talking about slavery. And Bill Maher said something during this interview that shocked a bunch of people. It was like he made a reference. They were talking about whether somebody worked in the house or worked in the fields. And he said, oh, no, I'd be a house. And then he used the N word. But he said it, completely. And everybody was like, what? And then it caused a lot of controversy, of course. He had to go on a 2-week hiatus, didn't have his show for 2 straight weeks. And then in the 3rd week, when he went back on the air, he had a guest with an interview right off the bat, no other, with Ice Cube, the rapper, who, by the way, I like a lot, by the way. If you've ever listened to him, I'm a big fan of his. Not the music stuff, but just him as a person. I like the way he thinks. I like the way he acts. He's a free thinker. Anyway, and then Bill took it on the chin from this guy and basically read the quote-unquote riot act for what he had done. I think fair enough. That's always fair. And then there was a process where he made his apologies. And then after that, he resumed his work. And what didn't follow that was a demand every time he looked left or right for somebody to continue that process. It's the same thing when somebody goes afoul of the law. They deal with it. They have to deal with whatever the consequences are. They address it. They take their licks. Then they hopefully, improve and don't reoffend in whatever way. I think that in the human journey of people who are obviously, we're all flawed in some way, in a lot of ways. Myself is definitely, I can say that about me. We fuck up. And I think the most important thing for anybody who screws up is what they do next. And do their actions indicate sincerity, and do they indicate a commitment to not making mistakes like that again? If somebody continues to make the same mistakes, they deserve whatever the hell happens to them, right? Somebody continues to behave in a way that's completely wrong. That's why when you go to jail the second time, you get a longer sentence because you have prior convictions, right? But there are some people that probably can never watch Bill Maher again. And because of the way it impacts them, when things like that come across them, it's understandable that people sometimes cannot accept somebody who hits a spot in their sense of the sense of their identity that's just too harmful for them. I completely understand that conceptually, although I've never had to feel those feelings because I'm a white guy from America, right? We kind of have a pass in life. We don't have to deal with shit like that because we've been in charge as colonialists for as long as we can remember. So it's fair to criticize anybody who crosses a line that is considered not crossing them. So that's fair. I think what is counterproductive in the long run is to exclude. And I think Bill Maher can be entertaining. I don't believe people like his comedy or his style or his politics, but I think his show can be entertaining sometimes with different guests. There was one where Russell Brand came on and kind of talked about the U.S. media being a complete joke and blah blah blah. That was entertaining to me. But so I just usually watch clips. I'm not a regular watcher. But had Bill Maher been quote unquote canceled, he wouldn't be doing a show anymore. He'd be gone forever. And I think that's the wrong way to do it. I don't like deplatforming people like Alex Jones or Nick Fuentes or anybody. They can say whatever the hell they want. But if they say something that people disagree with or find, they should get the public response or someone's better speech. That's the way I view stuff. And in the pragmatic nature of a political movement, which this is, I think all hands on deck are needed. And I know a comedy show is much different than a political movement. I'm not making that comparison. But it's about the process playing out in a way that is pragmatic. And again, I don't know how many Americans knew about this issue who have advocated on TikTok who happen to not be Palestinian or from a certain group that wouldn't normally speak to this, who have spoken out as much as I have. And I've gotten death threats for it. I've been reported to the FBI. And I'm willing to take whatever heat comes my way, including if I get in trouble. I try to keep the language in a way that it's not too provocative, that's going to cross that line to make it like hateful. But I have a lot of strong feelings about this, as many of you do. And so that's where I am. So what I'm going to try to do is be my best, speak to this as best I can. If people approach me who I respect in the movement and say, listen, man, this is too distractive. It would be better for a different approach. I will listen to that and abide by advice that I get because I think that's the right thing to do. Because in the end, it's the movement that matters. And the result that the movement is trying to achieve is the most important thing. So that's just my ideology, my approach, and everyone's going to be different in that regard. You can disagree, you can cancel people, you can stand on your pedestal and talk down to them and berate them and vilify them and make them the monster. The one thing I would say in some of the backlash, which is everybody can do whatever the hell they want, but some things that have been said have nothing to do with reality. And some of the haters, which I guess are just so filled with anger and rage that they have just taken things to a level that's just beyond rationality. And that's their right. But like I said before, when I see somebody who does those things, I don't have to interact with them. I don't have to stay on panels. I don't have to be an audience member. I certainly don't have to be a guest. They don't have to have me as a guest. They can boot me out of the comments if they want to. That's not my approach, as long as someone's behaving in a civil manner. But that's my approach. I respect theirs. Hopefully, they'll respect mine. But let's forget the individuals and focus on the movement. That's a lot of people said that yesterday. A lot of people didn't. So there's split views, and that's okay. There's always going to be differences of opinion. So I've said it enough times. That's where I am, and that's what I'm going to try to do until something changes. By the way, just as an aside, I'm not looking for sympathy when I say this, but I'm very, very, very sick. Not sick and tired of the bullshit. I mean, I'm very physically ill from the Gulf War. And I don't know what I got left in the tank. I really don't. And so it may be, I don't know what's going to happen next. But most of my days are spent struggling to either, get going. I just feel like shit. I still feel like shit right now. So I don't want any sympathy. Everybody has whatever they have, and we're all going to die. But mine is going to come a lot earlier than I would like. But so I'm going to try to use what I have in the tank, do the good that I can do, and I hope that's going to be enough for some. And if it's not, as Quinn likes to say, swipe away. Okay? And somebody's asking what it was, so I'll tell you what I got exposed to. So first of all, when they send you into a combat zone, they shoot like 16 different injections in you with those little air-based injectors. And we get injections that aren't tested. We're like the test round for human use. We had like 6 or 7 shots that had never been used before that were put onto us. So it could be some of that. It could be the oil fires that we were stationed next to for 60 days where we had oil all over us, which is not healthy. It's very toxic. It could be the burn pits. They burned all the garbage. It was all plastic stuff. And they also burned all the waste with diesel fuel and all that stuff. You breathe that shit in. It's just not good for you. You add in depleted uranium. The tips of the tank rounds that we used in combat were covered with what's called depleted uranium. It's an extremely toxic substance, and when the tank rounds impact the target, that dust just gets kicked up. And when you go into the region to clean up afterwards, that dust is just you're just breathing shit in. So that's part of it. And then chemical weapons dumps that got blown up, same story. And the last thing I think might have been it. They gave us some tablets called PB tablets, like Paul Bravo, and they're supposed to counteract the nerve agent attack. They were worried that we might get attacked with chemical weapons, and so we took that stuff as a preventative countermeasure. That stuff's really bad for you. So who the hell knows? It's a combination of all that shit. And of course, there's life factors. There's lifestyle, food, nutrition, stress. It all goes together. But that's kind of the soup. I'm sort of living in this toxic soup, and my body feels like it's poisoned, and I'm constantly nauseous. And like I said, I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just letting people know where I am and what I'm dealing with, so that you understand when I start to either miss lives or whatever the hell. I feel like I've aged like 10 years in the last 6 months. Anyway, it is what it is. Everyone has their challenges. And think of it this way: the way that I try to get out of, when I do get out of bed, when I can make it out, I think of all the people that have it way worse. I know people that got body parts, lost, head injuries, burns, that died. What the people in Gaza are dealing with. I like to say this is my attitude. I've been in combat. That sucks. I've been in jail. That sucks. And as long as I'm not in a combat zone or locked up somewhere, I got it pretty damn good. I remember when I was in country, I was dating a girl at the time, and she was starting to bitch about something like, "Oh, I really miss my TV station. My TV show is not coming on again." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you?" I mean, she really frustrated me because here she is living in a place with running water and heat, air conditioning, you know, plentiful food that actually tastes like food. And here we are stuck in I hadn't showered for like 2.5 months, which is disgusting. Uh, we were living in the sandiest, nastiest, wind-filled desert. You had talcum powder. It was like a talcum powder in every single thing you had. It was nasty. We didn't have. I remember I was doing some laundry one time, like washing some uniform stuff to get that shit out. And you'd hang it up, and it would just get coated with it again. There's just no way to keep your stuff clean. Most of the food we ate were these things called meals ready to eat. If you don't know what those are, these little prepackaged, like freeze-dried, disgusting items that are purposely meant to bind up your inside so you don't have to use the restroom for like 5 days. They purposely back you up so if you do go into combat, you don't have to take time off to do that. It's some sick shit. The military is it's not for the meek. And the other thing I want to mention is this. This was an interesting part. The most important thing about this is getting back to movements and sort of togetherness. But I was in a combat unit, and it's usually all men. And that's been changing recently with people's genders and stuff like that, however you want to call that. But when I was in the service, there was nothing like that was permitted. It was all men. But we did have units that were attached to us. We had a medical unit. And one of the soldiers out of, I think, the 25 or so that were in the unit was female. And guess what happened to her? She got pregnant within like a week of being there. And then she had to go, she had to leave because she had a pregnancy. So the military is a very different thing than real life. They force behavior in ways that most people probably couldn't endure. It's not a democracy. It's very authoritarian. In the military, if you don't know this, if you are living in a military community and you sleep with someone else's wife, you go to jail for 10 years. I know that sounds crazy, but they want to maintain what's called, esprit de corps, which is like a unit cohesion and togetherness. It's so important that when you go to combat that you don't have any bullshit going on, because it's hard enough to do it with no bullshit. So that's that. So if anybody's a guest now, I've kind of gotten this stuff out of my system for the day. I'm doing a lot of thinking today about this stuff. So if anybody's a guest and wants to talk, come on up. And I would really appreciate it if people want to express their views on whatever level. But I really have been the center of just so much attacks lately. I really don't want to sit up here and take a whole lot more of that because it's been very tumultuous at best. And maybe some of it is completely, deserved. But at some point, we all got to move forward. So I kind of want to strike that point. If you're someone who can't, I respect that. But I just don't want to have this be a constant circus. And that's that. Okay? Anyway, I have a lot to be thankful for, despite the issues. I'm here in the woods right now, walking. I can still walk, thank God. Spending time with a really beautiful dog named Ruby, who's an amazing friend. I also live with two cats that are just, they both sleep on the bed at night. They're really sweet. So, the thing that matters most to me in the world, other than trying to do right in terms of different things that are meaningful, I love animals. So, I've always loved animals, but I haven't figured out a way to do it for work-wise. But I'm going to figure it out because it's what I truly love. So I'm going to start doing some more of that because, when you start to realize that your clock is running out, you start to think about, well, what the fuck? I got to do what really means something. And so we'll see. Maybe I'll start to film some of that stuff. Probably going to go try to find an animal sanctuary or some type of rescue thing or something. I was out yesterday in the park with Ruby at this one park, and there's just so many squirrels. And I kind of have this noise I make that captures their attention, and they kind of are holding onto a tree, and they look at me and try to figure out, you know, what's that? What's that noise? Because it's not similar to what they make, but it's enough that it kind of catches their attention. So it was fun. I probably spoke to 100 squirrels yesterday. And it's those moments that, for me, those connected moments with nature, I think that's how we were meant to be. I don't think all this stuff living in the built up areas and being individualized and stuff and being away from nature is really good for us. I even feel a lot better today just being out here for the last hour. So the noise, I don't want to make the noise. I feel a little silly doing it, but let's just say I've worked on it for a long time, trying to perfect it. And almost every squirrel that I do it to will stop and look at me. It's really funny. Like, who's that? I don't know if it's a mating call or whatever, which is a very weird thing to do, to have a communicative noise with squirrels. But I'll share this too. If people don't know this, and this is something that people absolutely disagree with on, so be it. It's cool. But, a lot of people talk about religion and, how much strife we have with that. A lot of people have their beliefs. This is not to disrespect any of yours. But this is what I believe. And I've had people approach me to share what they believe in a sincere manner, which I really appreciate, by the way. I think whenever somebody has their faith and they benefit from that faith, or they believe it's the path that's the right path, and they want to help somebody onto that path, I think that's really kind of them to do it. My stubborn and inquisitive nature, and I'm always questioning stuff, is the same thing that gets me in trouble when I try to go down those paths. But what I believe, with whatever limited knowledge that I've been able to kind of try to figure out on this whole crazy system, is that we're on this rock. Who knows how it started? Who knows where it's going? Who knows what's going on outside of this? There's all these different things in the sky. It's really crazy and bigger than our brain can get around. And we only know, 3 dimensions. And there are probably others that we just can't see that answers some of these questions that we can't get our heads around. I believe that the doctrines, the religious texts, and the approaches to how one structures their life under those systems is based upon a desire to better understand those things and explain them in a way. Because we as humans, we want answers. We don't want to have things be ambiguous or unknown. We feel very insecure in those spaces mentally. It's emotionally uncomfortable to not know, like, well, what's this all for? Why does this all matter? What the hell are we even doing here? How did it get started? What happens when we die? And it's so funny, whenever I'm on a customer service call with somebody and the representative says, I'm glad we got that taken care of. Is there anything else I can help you with? And I always say this. I say, can you please tell me how the world got started and what happens when we die? And they go, I can't help you with that one. But I believe that religion and this is just my take, it's not mean to be disrespectful, but my best guess is that religion is something that came to be as a tool of those in power to help explain away to people what they think about that, to make it make sense. And then on top of that, they would have rules or commitments or processes that the regular people in society would need to be adhered to maintain order and to maintain the status quo. And to give them, I'll give you an example. If someone is having a very difficult life right now, and they are told by their society or their group or whatever you want to call it, that don't worry about your suffering right now. This is a temporary journey that's going to be leading to a second one that's going to be so much more glorious and whatever you want to fill in that blank. Now, this is the other thing. When I talked about evidence, I have no evidence to prove that none of that's true. That could be entirely what things are. I can't see it. To be fair, and I don't know which religion's which. I don't get any of that stuff. But it could be. I could be completely clueless. I probably am. But that makes a lot of sense to me. If you think about if you're someone who's in charge and you want to kind of keep the order, keep people doing whatever you need them to do for whatever your goals are, it keeps people in line. Like, hey, don't worry about your suffering. You're going to get something much better. Just keep on keeping on, and you're good to go as long as you adhere to this, that, and the other. And then people do, and so whatever happens when we die, I don't know. I had an uncle who partied a lot, and he was sort of kind of rode hard, put away wet kind of guy. Just kept on going. He did a lot of drinking and stuff. And he said to me one time, he's like, Chip, when I die, it's a light switch going off, and that's the end of story. So that's what he believed. I know that sounds kind of like, wow, could that really be it? But that's our finality. It's just like a light switch. Consciousness just disappears. And I know I'm kind of just rambling here. Sorry about that. But these are things that I try to think about once in a while that are just hard to, I don't know. I don't know if any of you have insights to that based on your faith or based on your perspective. But this is what I was trying to share with you. I've shared it before. So I apologize to those who I'm repeating. But hi, how you doing? So the best thing I can make sense of is that we're part of this really complex and interconnected series of living systems on this amazing thing that's within a certain band from our sun, our star, which gives us just the perfect temperature range. And we're able to have life here. I don't know how it got started, but somehow it did. And things have evolved, and we're in that process. And this thing is a very lengthy process, although it will come to an end. As the sun grows in size, the earth and the oceans will start to evaporate and the temperatures will rise. And so on the surface, life will not be able to persist. Probably some subterranean life or deep in the oceans, if they're not completely evaporated, will survive for a while. But eventually, because of the inability for plant matter to form, the earth will become a barren surface again, like it was when it first formed. And so therefore, no matter what humans do, if we're able to somehow survive, a billion years from now, which is highly unlikely, but in the event that we do, we're going to be a succinct species. So everything here is temporary, even if it's over a much longer period of time. And it's weird, the cyclical nature of that, where there's a birth, a life, a decline, and then death, is so natural and normal that it's actually necessary for the natural systems to function properly. So I actually believe in that. I know it sounds weird. It's like, well, duh, of course that's what happens. But that's to me what I think the system is. And that's the way it's meant to be. And, we're just one part of that. And the thing that gets me a little bit flustered, how you doing, is that somehow humans get the idea that we're sort of above all this. And maybe we are because of divine X, Y, and Z. But my sense of it is we have this sort of hubris, and we believe, and this is a generally accepted principle in most human cultures, that humans are special, that we're given sort of dominion over what we have around us, and therefore we have the right to do with things as we see fit, whether it's rocks, quarries, minerals, other beings, etc. You know the deal. And then what that then permits is, of course, exploitation that's justified based on human supremacy. And I don't buy that. I just don't buy that. I think that is a bullshit story. That's a narrative that people have kind of come to collectively believe in. And look at the harm that's coming of it. Look at the population. I'm not against humans, but I am against imbalance. I'm not against benefits for us in terms of industrialization, but I am against the harm to the biosphere. So everything is pros and cons. And I hear people talking about increasing the pace of development to things like alleviate poverty. Hey, that's great. I want people to be able to live as privileged a life as I live, and many of us probably do. That's being altruistic and kind. The question is, what are the costs going to be if that does take place? If we don't get into some kind of crazy conflict where everything gets destroyed, hopefully, that doesn't happen. So this is the stuff that pervades my thoughts. I don't know if any of you think of this stuff, but I believe that we're part of a bigger system. We are just a part, and we're not more or less significant than any other part. And one guy told me once, when I was kind of talking to this, I'll never forget, his name was Don Harold. He goes, "Are you telling me my daughter's equal to a cat?" That's what the guy said to me. And I said, "No, your daughter's not equal to a cat. Your dog is a dog. Your daughter is your daughter. She's a human, and the cat is the cat, and both just are. That's it. I don't put a value. I don't look at things in terms of value. I think there's just existence and the cycles and what's around us. And I call that biophysical reality. I've heard of that a lot. And then humans, with our intellect, we create narratives and stories that we then adhere to. And you'd be amazed. You probably think, well, I'm not like that. I'm an independent thinker. No, you're not. All of us have these core beliefs that are sort of unconscious and they're so pervasive, just like we talked about the old person's house, that smell that they can't smell because they've lived there. We have that in our beings because we just assume, well, it's normal to be in charge. We're the apex predator and we're the shit, right? That's not how I see it. And I unfortunately believe that that's the same type of arrogance, and this is not to be mean-spirited, but I believe that that style of arrogant thinking, which tends to be very almost universal on the earth right now, which is what's taught from birth, so it's not surprising, is very similar to being the chosen people that the Zionists believe they are, and that they have the right to exploit that which they want to their benefit, regardless of consequence. Very similar thought process. So here's a ringer for you, right? So what will eventually solve all of our problems, right? What will make life better? Less impact on the biosphere, less conflict, less, more enjoyable life for everybody, more harmonious living. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but you know what would change it? It all comes down to that mindset. And when one's mindset is towards self-gratification and to the detriment, like a sociopathic mindset, which I would argue that the collective human society is basically like one big sociopath running writ large across the landscape, doing whatever the hell it does. And if you look at, this is the other thing that's crazy. If you look at the Earth from space at night and you see pictures of the developed areas, all the developed areas have light at night, like they have their streets lit, etc. And it looks like, if you look at cancer, like lung cancer cells, and then you look at the Earth at night in the developed areas, it looks like cancer. It literally looks like cancer growing on the beautiful green surface with these periodic places where it's completely flattened and lit up. And that saddens me. And then I look at the continent of Africa. If you look at the continent of Africa at night, it has very little. There's some in South Africa, some in the north, but most of Africa does not have much light at night. And that's why it's the next big, quote, prize for the corporate raiders. They want to develop that undeveloped space. And they're all vying for it. China's vying for it, the US, Russia, the whole 9 yards. And I think it's the push for development, resource extraction, converting nature into products and services and maintaining a global interconnected economy is absolutely insane. And yet it persists at a record pace. And I believe we're our own worst enemy in so many ways, just like we are in our own lives. A lot of times our fears and our concerns and our worrying keep us from being who we really want to be. We don't just kind of do in the present moment. We're always hindered by something, myself in a big way. So I acknowledge that stuff. The challenge is, how the hell do you go from where we are to where we need to be, right? To make things better. And I think it's going to require. Hello, doggies. Sorry about that. I think it's going to require a shift in mindset. If our core beliefs are ones of we get to do what we want, it's all for us, it's going to continue to stay fucked up. If we instead look at the world and say, hey, it's something that we have to respect, we're only a part of it, it's our responsibility not to go past our part, to respect the roles that everyone and everything else plays in it, we wouldn't have these crazy things happening. We wouldn't be destroying the environment. We wouldn't be killing each other. We wouldn't be trying to take each other's shit. But of course, that's probably never going to happen because some people who decide they're going to try to get stuff, they have these sociopathic characteristics where they just seem indifferent to the suffering of others. That's what I despise. Someone who does not care about their impact. So that's what I think about. I hope that's not too crazy for some of you, but that's the true deal. If you put a little Neuralink up to my head and hit go, that's what you get. So we're all very complicated people. We all have our prejudices, our biases, our different upbringings. We are a conditioned system of influences. And I think it's fascinating. And there's not a person on the earth that doesn't have something of value in them to contribute. And even people who are terrible or have terrible behavior, they still have some good in them. We have the potential for great good. Unfortunately, when you have systems that encourage the worst that's within us, that's what it brings out, of course. It makes sense. And I think systems like capitalism, competitive life, where you go through trying to get yours, and you don't necessarily work with your neighbor in the community. We didn't evolve this way. We evolved to work in groups, small groups. That's how we survived. And life was tough. Life is easier now, but usually when things are easy, and even our personal lives, it's not as fulfilling. It's when we're sort of meant to struggle and suffer, go several days without food. But there's something in the rigor of overcoming difficulty that yields a sense of satisfaction and appreciation. And when things are too easy, as they are in most industrial societies, you have this sort of veering off the path of sort of, I don't know what to call it, decency or, what we were intended to be and do. So that's what I think. It's not just capitalism, it's the global interconnected nature of it, the expansion of the use of resources. Oh my God, a deer just went by. I hope she doesn't see it or smell it. We're going to get a lot of noise. Anyway, I got to walk a little faster. So that's some food for thought for today. I don't know if anybody finds that interesting. Somebody says, this is fair to say, by the way. And listen, I think it's fair. It's fair for anybody to criticize somebody else with whom you disagree or whatever. And everyone has their flaws. So if somebody here, so I'll read this out. Somebody here says in the comments, this is in all caps. This is the first comment I've looked at. Chip, because you have it, it's because you're hog everything and make sure your goodwill others suffer. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but you're entitled to your opinion. But if you could be as kind as to not use all caps, that would be appreciated. Sorry about the dog. Ruby, come on, baby. She saw the deer. Yeah, she saw the deer, unfortunately. Come on. Hey. Shh. This is normal for her. Okay, so I've been on for quite a bit of time talking about this stuff. I don't want to hog all the airtime. Plus, my mouth is getting dry. So if anybody wants to come up and share their views on any of this, whatever your views may be, if you want to explain to somebody like me why you feel that your take is different and more beneficial because of what you've come to learn, I would love to hear it because I'm not closed-minded to anything. And as I've mentioned before, the people that tend to follow some sort of faith-based organized system, it does provide community, by the way, because you get to go to either the mosque or to your temple or to synagogue or to your church. And community is the best thing for us, that and nature. I think nature and community are the two foundational principles that most of us don't get enough of. I know I don't. So, but if you want to share some of your life experience, some of your thoughts, your philosophy, again, if you disagree, especially if you disagree, I find that interesting. So I've had people say, you should write a book, man. You should write a book about this stuff. Maybe I will. I don't know. My discipline sucks when it comes to getting organized and doing shit regularly. You see, my video production has dropped off. I just haven't been feeling well lately. It's hard for me to have creative thoughts when I'm feeling like shit. Anyway, so now in terms of unwinding things, this is the part that people kind of, in my opinion, kind of get wrong. The way I look at the world right now is it's gotten to where it is. It's taken a long time for things to evolve to where they are. And we didn't jump from the Stone Age to global capitalism in like 150 years. This has taken thousands of years to develop. And it is pretty fascinating that the humans have been able to achieve what we have. We're incredible, amazingly creative creatures. But if we're going to go to a place where this is somewhat sustainable, I personally don't believe that we can have a population of 8 billion humans and live at the clip this way in perpetuity. There's only one of these Earths. And once you screw it up to a point, you get past the tipping point, the biosphere doesn't function right, and then we can't have the things that we need to survive, the core survival stuff. So I've studied a lot of people's work about this. Now, this is my core passion is this issue because, ultimately it gets back to the nuclear war thing. My number one issue is how can we make sure we survive, but in a way that's dignified alongside other life and not exploitative. That's my core belief and core desire, and not be killing each other, right? Not be trying to conquer each other. So that's what I think is most important. And in the same vein, I think preventing a global conflict that could be our demise is the most important short-term concern. But long-term, and I'll speak to the United States because that's where I live. Every nation state has a different system of government, different political climate, different levels of corruption and industry, all this stuff that we look at, different resources. But I think what we have to do is start, literally, if you're going to unwind something, you have to just map out what happened, and then you have to start working your way back. And it's like trying to reassemble a ball of yarn or something. So it's not going to be easy. But the first thing is consciousness. As Eddie Liger says, who's Midwestern Marx, he puts out all that content. This guy's amazing. You know, consciousness in a capitalist society is the working class realizing that the people at the top, the aristocracy, are basically trying to fuck us, for lack of a better term, to exploit us to their benefit. And they're doing a hell of a good job of it, by the way. I mean, whether you love them or hate them, I'm not a big fan, but you have to admire they've done a hell of a job putting things in a place where they get more and we get less. And it's rapidly diverging. I'm sure you're aware of that. If your core inflation report, it's still going up. Not like we have to be told that, right? They tell us things like it's only going up at like 2%. Give me a, are you kidding me? I think most of the stuff, I'm about to go to the store now and buy some stuff for Ruby and the cats. And that shit's like more than doubled. There's a certain frozen pizza at this one store that I go to that I've used as an index. It's like the Big Mac index. And that thing used to cost like $4.20. And now it's $7.99. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's almost double. And this is in the span of like 2 years. That's 100% inflation. The US dollar since like 1900 has been devalued like 99.75%. And we're printing right now like $1 trillion every 100 days. The Federal Reserve is printing money. And we're just going to further dilute the currency in perpetuity. This is what late stage empire gets you to. So, first of all, I'll put it this way. This is not to be Debbie Downer. I don't think it's going to change. I think it's going to accelerate. Hey, how you doing? Sorry about the background noise. The frogs are going crazy in the pond over there. I think it's going to get way worse. And when I say that, what I mean is that the dilution of the US dollar, the Federal Reserve note, is going to accelerate. And we're going to have a reset of some type. I've talked about this a lot. But what that's going to mean for you and I is that our assets, anything that's driven by the dollar, is continually devaluing. If you have money in the bank right now, it is losing value at like record pace. Even if you buy stocks, even though they've gone up a lot, stocks are near record highs. They've been trimming a little bit recently. But in terms of the value of gold, which is the barometer for the real value, spending value of the market, the S&P 500 is off its highs by about 30% right now. And that's all that matters is purchasing power. If your stock market goes up and you have all your money, my 401k, then when you cash some of it out to go buy shit, it buys like a third of what it used to. Well, that's not good. And that means people on fixed incomes, like elderly people who get stipends from the government, they can't afford to live anymore. And the fastest growing percentage of the US homeless population is people over the age of 65. That to me is absolutely disgusting. There's a girl named Natalie. What's her name? She does a lot of videos on here. I forget. I'm trying to remember what her handle is. Or anyway, she talks a lot about this. Like how disgraceful is it that in a country with such incredible wealth, that's so concentrated at the top, that we can't even afford to have people who have lived their whole life contributed to the system have a fucking place to stay. That to me is disgusting. So if I were president or I was the guy in charge, first I'd be assassinated. If I were in charge and I could implement things, the first thing I would do is put out a rule. No private jets, no yachts, no fancy vacation homes, no mansions over the size of like 3,000 square feet. Live like a normal human. And we have to have basic housing, basic health care, decent education, and good nutrition for every person in the country. No excuse. Have care for women. If women get pregnant and they have to have a family, they're going to have a family, put in provisions that help foster that. The Russians do a great job of that. The French do a great job of that. Why do the Americans suck so bad? Why are women who are trying to help out with this crazy inflation put in a position of choosing before rearing their children or going to work? That is fucked up, in my opinion. So that would change. And then other things, the armaments industry, the militarism, that would stop. Close all these fucking military bases, bring all this stuff back, start spending money on helping people live better lives, and then figure out ways to do this shit in a way that's not so harmful, and be a leader in that and encourage others to do the same. Broker peace. Stop all the fighting. Take these rich assholes who are trying to exploit everybody and put them in fucking jail. Just like you want to do with people. Listen, if the region of Palestine ever becomes a new entity where there's a dissolution of the current political structure, which is what I think is the best way to do it, and it's something that becomes like democratic and unified, It's not going to be perfect, but at least people. But if you have people that are committed Zionists who will never ever budge an inch and they want to keep taking Eretz Israel, you got to do something with those people. They either have to be deported or jailed because these people are sociopathic. We should have a rule that if you're psychiatric, if you're deemed a sociopath, you can't be a part of the deal, man. You got to be able to work in cooperation. And then the businesses that we form, instead of being these shareholder-driven models of greed and you know all that bullshit that goes on now, those things need to be flattened. The executive compensation and shareholder model needs to go. And we need to have cooperatively owned businesses where people that work for the companies benefit from the companies. You can price things lower. You can have more equitable workplace. People get to make decisions. They feel better about coming to work. This is the way things should be. How many people hate their jobs right now? And they do it for survival. That's got to change. We need to find people's true talents, true loves, and match them up with a service or something in society that clicks. That's not the priority. We need to have preventative health care. We need to get together, get our kids moving in school and have quality food that's not poisoned by the rich, food companies that want to just make a buck and they could give a shit who gets sick. And then the people that do get sick go into this disgusting for-profit, pharmaceutical industry shit and the hospital industrial complex where people have to get surgery and stay on drugs for their whole life, which makes a shitload of money for those same people I talked about. These are the sociopaths running the show. That all needs to change. So those are some of the basics I would do. I would remove money from politics. I would set term limits. I would eliminate lobbying from corporations. I would have the right to withdraw corporate charters if people didn't behave properly. If you are found to be bribing a politician or trying to influence elections, you go to life in prison, no parole. No parole. Because you are deemed to be somebody who cannot work within the system. And you cannot be cooperative. I don't want any sociopaths or psychopathic greedy people running the show. That's my take. And I think if those things were to change, life would become so much better for the average person. And we'd have more harmony. When people are all stressed out all the time trying to make their bills and just absolutely just totally in stress mode 24/7, that's not living. That's barely surviving. Oh, she got a stone tucking her foot. Hold, come here. Come here. You okay? There we go. You should be okay now. You're good. There you go. Okay. So that's my little rant on if I were king for a couple of years. Now, I know none of that's going to fly. I mean, even some leaders that I admire, who I think do a better job of leading their people, they're hardcore committed to industrialism and growing their economies. And maybe that's the pressure they're under from their people, because that's what the people want, is more of this. But I really believe, and again, it's hard to give it a chance, but I believe that if we had a little more difficulty in our lives, weren't so cushy, we'd be a hell of a lot happier. Now, people have said to me, well, dude, why don't you go volunteer, go live in the woods, right? And I wouldn't mind doing that, but we have to have systemic level change. People have said, well, if you don't like population being the size, why don't you start thinning it at home by yourself? Yeah, I get that point too. That's not unfair to say. But again, let's say I do that, right? Well, we're now at 7,999,000,000, whatever. And that doesn't solve the problem. So we're going to have to figure some of this stuff out. And right now, I think it's this sort of out of control, sort of unorganized, just blob of bullshit just trudging forward into this abyss that we're going to jump into. And I think it's really sad and so unnecessary. Yeah, anyway. And I'm sure there's plenty of other things that I missed that would be better to put in. I'm sure everybody has their ideas. So we do have a guest in the box. By the way, a lot of people said, well, who are you going to vote for then, Trump or Biden or whoever comes up as a Democrat? The answer is neither, because the whole thing makes me want to throw up. I just can't bring myself. Like I said, somebody said, will you visit Israel? I'm sure it'd be a great experience to visit Israel. It's a beautiful country. My parents went there and said they loved going. I'm sure so many of the people are kind and welcoming and friendly. But here's the thing. I'm sort of in the U.S. I was born here. I didn't choose to be born here. I would rather be somewhere else as far as just aligning what I believe with what this country doesn't do as far as the government. But I'm not feeling so good. And it's hard for me to kind of take the plunge of moving to a different country when I have all these. Plus, my health care is through the VA. I don't have private health care. So as much as I would love to pick up and go, and I do have enough resources to survive the move, but not much else. There's just a lot of barriers. But notwithstanding that, I do believe that if going to Israel, I would have such mixed feelings. I would love to visit because this would be a cool experience. But as I said to somebody, I would feel like I need to take a shower because there's something about the government and the culture that supports, to whatever extent it does, what we're seeing, just makes me feel sick to my stomach. And I'm sick to my stomach about what happens here. I think it's disgusting. When I gave that interview to the Turkish TV channel, that's the word I use. It's absolutely disgusting that the government of the country I live in is supplying the money and the bombs to let this shit happen. So indirectly, someone like myself is complicit because I'm not stopping it and we're not stopping it. But how the hell do we? So there's a whole thing on it's my link in bio. If you're curious to see some of the thoughts about this, which, how do we go from where we are to where things should be that I've discussed? There is a path. There is a path that would work. Now, it's going to be very difficult and it's going to be very tumultuous. That's the nicest way to put it. It's happened once before in our country where things had to realign and there was a different set of power structures that didn't agree, and then we had a pretty rough period. I think this one's going to be even tougher than that and far more impactful on the population if it does occur. I don't think it will. I follow people like Chris Hedges. If you don't know who Chris Hedges is, he's an author and a speaker who I admire. I've actually met him. And I love his work. I think he's a pragmatist, but he also talks about the same aspirations that I've been kind of loosely covering. But he believes that there's probably a good probability that nothing that the quote people try to do is going to change the trajectory of this. And that's pretty discouraging. But if your mindset is like Ayn Rand, if you know Ayn Rand, she was about selfishness being a virtue and that trying to go out and do for yourself is like the best way for man to live. I disagree wholeheartedly. But that's sort of the prevailing mindset that drives commerce and government and international affairs. It saddens me, but it's reality. So I don't think the U.S. public will organize. There's been some of it stirred up by this event, which is a good thing. And people are waking up to things being, just a big game. But not enough, in my opinion, for there to be the critical mass, for there to be some sort of a revolution or whatever. So that's what I think. And, a lot of people probably disagree with all this. A lot of people who I've talked to, I went to business school, and I was the only person in the entire class of like 60 students that brought up any of this stuff. I had an ethics class, which was, how do you deal with an employee issue when you have two people and one person, and they didn't cover anything that was really deep in the ethical bucket. And whenever I brought something up, the instructor got so pissed. She's like, stop talking about oil. It was fun. It was fun. There may be a little bit of noise here. I'm walking past a road. I'll be in my car in just a second to keep the noise down. So thanks for bearing with it. But yeah, I would say this. Being out in nature is just, for me, the ultimate just calming effect. And I wish I did more of it, because every time I do it, I'm like, damn, that felt good. Sanity check. Yeah, also turning off my damn phone. I'm so bad about looking at my phone so much. I want to be able to take a time where I just like put it away for like half a day or something. But it's just, I'm a stimulation junkie. All right, I'm going to let the dog in the car in a second. Ruby, don't go anywhere. Don't chase any deer, please. Okay, hop up. Hop up. Hop up. Hop up. Hop up. There you go. Good girl. All right, just a second. Now, one thing I did, just out of curiosity, and people probably don't know this, but sometimes you can watch a live. You're not actually in the audience. You kind of scroll through, and before you can just says tap the screen to enter. So yesterday, I probably spent. I don't care if somebody has a different opinion or doesn't like somebody. Hey, okay, but just be straight. If you're feeling that way, be authentic. Don't be. I hate two-faced people, and I don't hate many things, but I absolutely hate two-faced people. So if you're one of those people here, just politely get the fuck out, because you're worthless. I think that's a terrible way to be, but that's how I feel. Somebody says it's lagging. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, and hopefully it doesn't offend too many people, but that's the truth as I see it. I wonder what's going to happen long term with this conflict, because the trajectory seems like it's just going to be never ending suffering. But the good news, like we've talked about, is the awareness is through the roof. And the thing that I find most satisfying out of, it's all the suffering, is that people are seeing for once what Israel actually does. Thank goodness. Because I've been trying to talk about it with people forever, and it's just like talking to a brick wall. But these smartphones have been such a benefit to Palestinians. And if the real mission of this was to stir up interest and get people to think about the conflict, which has been relatively suppressed for most people forever, imagine how frustrating that must be, being brutalized by somebody and nobody even seems to even know what's going on forever. Imagine how frustrating that must be, being brutalized by somebody and nobody even seems to even know what's going on or care. That's got to be very frustrating. So if to have people who are from the West start to look at this and care about it and protest and show anger, that's a big difference. And so I believe, and others have said this, Scott Ritter and Colonel Douglas McGregor, and I know people from Israel or who support Israel are going to be very upset to hear this and think that I'm out of my mind. I heard the "we're not going anywhere" type of thing. I don't think the people are going anywhere, but I think the nation state of Israel has gone a step too far with this campaign. So this is what I think. I think this is the very first step of some major change. I don't want to predict what it's going to be. I think what it would ideally be is the dissolution of the current nation state integrated into a regional thing, whether it's separated or whether it's contiguous. But the ideology that drives Zionism is going to have to be displaced and replaced with something that's more conciliatory and more reasonable than it currently is. That's the best way I can put it. Yeah, that's a great point. Let me see whose name it was. It was Nadal. So what Nadal just said was, I totally agree. It said, expose the truth finally, and people are looking at the other side and the root cause. Well put. Very well put. I really appreciate you doing that. So I started a little early today because I've been not getting great sleep. So I'm trying to start earlier, finish earlier so I can go to bed around 10 o'clock, which is about what I need to do as I'm getting older. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the live now. Nobody's in the box, so I'm going to end it right now. But I do want to let people know, talked about a lot of esoteric stuff today, as well as political pragmatism and, putting aside differences towards a broader goal. People are people. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to say what they're going to say. It is what it is. I think one of the best ways to go through life, as hard as it can be, is to. I learned this in recovery, by the way. I've been through some recovery, and I still know people that are doing it. But one of the principles is what somebody else has to say about me is none of my business. They're going to say whatever they say anyway. So just, it is what it is. Some people are going to love you. Some people are going to hate you. There's going to be some people who can give a shit or don't, whatever. People are mostly concerned with themselves. That's the bottom line. So rarely are they even thinking about you. So we always think that we're getting on people. People can give a shit. That's the most important thing about it. Okay. So if you want to go back and review this, it'll be uploaded to my YouTube channel in about an hour when I get home. And you can reach the YouTube and Rumble channels through my link in my bio. It just says Linktree Chip Barnes. If you're not in the United States, then you have to type into your web browser the Linktree Chip Barnes that I've written into my bio. And it'll take you right. You'll see the YouTube Rumble. Now, one last thing. In the middle of that little list of stuff that it will take you to, you're going to see something that's called Action for Change. It's a Telegram group that I created. Action, the number 4, change. That's where the conversation is about overcoming some of these seemingly insurmountable hurdles, either in the United States or elsewhere. So if you're curious to read about that or get involved in that conversation, jump in. Everyone's ideas are welcome. But it's going to take a large movement and organization for any of those things to be remotely possible. So it's a building process, right? And there's not much time if we're going to head towards, some kind of crazy conflict. But if that doesn't happen, we have to organize. And it's going to be uncomfortable and personal sacrifice to the point where you can't even imagine. But that's the only way change comes about. And if that's not something you're interested in or don't want to endure, understandably so. But remember the American Revolution, a lot of Americans who had sort of good lives in the British system, they were maybe out of business, they were making money. The only way they could overcome the British in the long term is to pull people out of their comfortable lane and get involved in the resistance movement. And I'm not suggesting arm stuff. I'm just saying in terms of putting your energies and activities in that direction. So check it out. I think that's an interesting thing to look at. I will see you all the next time I have the gumption to do this. And let's be nice to each other.